Today, I'm going to be reacting to a video titled How to Get into Oxford to Study Mathematics. This was actually sent in by a viewer and they asked for me to review it, so I thought, why not just do that on a video? So, this is by a channel called The Profs, which I believe is like a big agency that has lots of tutors for maths and maybe other subjects as well. And I presume this is one of the tutors or one of the people involved. But yeah, I'll be interested to see how this goes. I reacted to a video a few weeks ago and that did pretty well. And it was also interesting to hear various people's comments. For those of you that are new, my name's Jamie and I studied maths at Oxford University, and now I work full time as a mathematics tutor, helping students from all across the globe get into studying maths at either Oxford or Cambridge. Anyway, let's stop waffling and let's get stuck in.
Hi, my name is Mike, and I am an education consultant here at the Profs. I've actually been studying mathematics myself for a very, very long time. I've actually done an undergraduate degree in mathematics at the University of Exeter. I've also done the Part 3 in mathematics at the University of Cambridge, as well as 2 further mathematics degree at the University of Warwick. So education
Lucky.
has been my passion, and I've been tutoring all of that time as well on the side.
I guess he didn't say PhD, so I'm curious if he did do a PhD, great. But if he didn't do a PhD, I'm wondering what those extra 2 degrees were. But anyway, cool. How to get
It's a
into Oxford
pleasure
for
today for
maths.
me to be able to talk about how do you get into Oxford to study mathematics. Now, I'm not going to lie, it is a fairly competitive course. We have, in terms of the last cycle, 30% of applicants only getting an interview and then 9% of those applicants getting accepted. Here at the Profs, we have a really impressive track record of having a 55% acceptance rate for Oxbridge candidates. So if you
I see, I see. Maybe this is some sort of marketing video for them. I mean, game's a game, but whilst I'm here, 80% of my students get into Oxford or Cambridge, or in fact over 80%. And this year, 13 of my students applied to Oxford or Cambridge, and 12 of them got offers. So apart from one unlucky student, 12 of my students got into Oxford or Cambridge, or got offers from Oxford or Cambridge. Anyway, let's
like
continue.
anything that you
55 is
hear
still
or
pretty good.
see in this
Most
video,
top
why
schools only do like 30.
not give a click in the description below to find out more about our services?
No,
Be
no, no
happy to
free
answer a
promo.
few questions. And my first tip is make sure you know what degree you're going in for. As said before, Oxford is one
Nice. I noticed they put an extra E here and they've just blurred it out.
of the
Bit
most
odd, but
competitive universities
okay.
in the world. In fact, it's one of the oldest universities in the UK, so it's an extremely attractive destination for people to go to. Now, when you actually apply for mathematics at the University of Oxford, you can either go in for a bachelor's degree or a master's degree, but there's more than that. You can either study maths, you could
It's true. He's correct there, but you don't necessarily have to choose whether you want to do the all 4 years from the get go. So normally you decide in third year, or sometimes the decision is made for you if you don't do well enough in your exams. Most people stay on for 4 years, but you don't have to. Lots of people in their third year, they have a job offer or something, and they go, you know what, I'd rather earn some money, and they decide to not do the fourth year. But you don't have to know that when you apply.
do maths and philosophy, maths and computer science, or maths and statistics. So what we want to see in your UCAS application,
Also, yeah, so if you apply, for example, for maths, that would be the exact same application as applying for maths and statistics. In fact, the first year modules are entirely identical. So you can choose during the first year if you want to change from maths to maths and stats or the other way around or whatever. Obviously, this would be after some chats with your college and your tutors and stuff.
in your personal statement, even in your interviews, a love for all of the subjects that you're doing. So what you are going in for has a drastic effect of actually how your application is going to look on paper to your admissions officers. Now, my second tip to get into Oxford is make sure you know every stage of the admissions process. You first need to know that you have to get an equivalent of an A star, another A star, and an A, with maths and further maths included. You have to know as well that you have as well an admissions test in order to take, usually the mathematical aptitude test or the MAT, that is usually taken mid-October time. So my advice really is to start preparing at the very latest before the summer, just after you finish year 12, before you even go into year 13, because
What he's saying is correct. Definitely make sure you know the process and talking about when the latest you should start preparing. I'm not sure if you'll mention this or not, but I've mentioned this before. There is no earliest time. If you're 14 years old, you're in year whatever that is, year 10, year 9, year 10. Start preparing now. And that doesn't necessarily mean you have to be doing loads and loads of maths admissions test pass papers. What it means is, just, explore your curiosity in maths and make sure you build up that passion and that obsession with mathematics.
What you want to do there is you want to make sure that you have all of your readings done, make sure that you've researched your course thoroughly after you've chosen what kind of mathematics you want to do at Oxford. You've also got the interviews, and this takes a lot of preparation. You cannot just go into it blindly and think that you're going to do okay. No, you need to actually
100%.
practice with someone. You need to be able to justify why you want to do the course. If I was to hypothetically ask you a question as an admissions officer, in terms of your competency in mathematics, I want you to be able to engage in some academic conversation around your subject. I want
Yeah, absolutely right. Again, and I've mentioned this hundreds of times before. Is the interviews one thing that's really big about them? And I guess the one piece of advice I could give is if you are doing a maths interview at Oxford or Cambridge, is you want to think out loud, and that is such a difficult skill, a skill that you probably haven't really practiced before, because most of your maths that you learn in school is assessed, via exams, or you're forced to be silent. So in an interview, it's quite the opposite. They encourage you to talk about maths and discuss the problem. So that's something that you want to get used to, want to get some practice with.
there to be some demonstration of critical thinking going on, which is a really important thing, not even just at Oxford, but generally at any university for students to be able to show. So we have the admissions test, we have the interviews, and we have the grades. We've also got the UCAS application. The personal statement has got to say everything about why you enjoy mathematics, why you'd be good at it, but also what you want to do in the future. We'll talk about the importance of that career plan that you were going to be mentioning in your UCAS application a little bit later. So my third tip,
Mm. Not sure I 100% agree about the career plan, but he said he's going to mention it later. So I'll hear him out before
in getting into
I say
Oxford
anything.
to study mathematics is make sure that when you are actually making your application, you demonstrate everywhere you love for mathematics. I cannot say this enough. As part of your personal statement, the majority of the time when you're writing it, about 80% of that is going to be down to your academic aptitude and your interests. And that's got to be evident very, very early on in the application process. So one
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it sounds a bit silly, but it's really, really true. You want to showcase that you absolutely love maths and that you're almost obsessed with it. And of course, now with the new personal statement change, so from 2025 applicants onwards, they're changing the format of personal statements so that it's kind of answering three um, questions which are fixed. They're given to you in advance. With those questions in each of those paragraphs, you still want to be able to showcase your love for mathematics when you're applying to Oxford and Cambridge. They really want people who are good at maths, who really love maths, and are fit for the course. And I guess those two things are things that I always bark on about. But those three things are the main things you want to have in mind when tackling your
thing that I
personal statement.
heavily recommend, that I have mentioned earlier, is reading. Oxford generally have a recommended list of books that you can use for guidance in your different streams of mathematics. But make sure, again, you start reading early. You don't want to just read the blurb or the first chapter and say, I know everything about this topic, I'm very much interested in it, because you will be asked about that if you were to go to interview. So you have to be able
You won't, but if you do write about something in your personal statement, do make sure you know it. I think more just from the moral point of view, and also from the fact that, and I've talked about this before, Oxford and Cambridge really don't care about your personal statements. They have much better ways of assessing your academic potential through the interviews, where they ask you maths questions, and through the admissions test, so be it the MAT, TMUA, or STEP. So the personal statement is really easy to lie on, which is again another reason why they don't really value it so much. But if you do mention a book or something, the reason I'd say is make sure you have read it and you're happy with the contents of it, and things like that, is because in an interview, let's say that they're not going to test you on your knowledge of that book. Likelihood is that the tutors probably haven't read that book unless it's a very common book, or a famous book, or just by chance, because there are so many maths books out there. But the reason they might you definitely want to be able to say you have read that book is because maybe as an icebreaker question at the start of the interview, they go, "Oh, I saw that you read XYZ book. What were your thoughts on it?" And That's more not there to test you, but again, just to break the ice. Likelihood that scenario won't even happen. But yeah, they really don't care if you've about your personal statement. Likelihood is they won't even read it. If they do read it, it might just be before the interviews, and that's just to get a sense of who you are. If there's any kind of extenuating circumstances or things that they should know about, the personal statement is the least of your worries in your application to Oxbridge.
To justify what you know, you need to be able to do your readings thoroughly. Do not just read the blurb. Mathematical top competitions are also very, very fun as well. The UKMT, or the UK Maths Challenge, is a massive, massive favourite. If you ended up getting a gold or a silver from that, do mention that as part of your application. I would go even a step further. Why not actually enter yourself in as an external candidate for the British Mathematical Olympiad? In the majority of cases, you usually have to do very, very well in school, and then they would be able to sort of recommend you take that as a follow-on. But you can enter into these competitions yourself. It is a little bit costly to do check the prices, but it's a great thing to be able to put down on your CV and your personal statement. One of the most wonderful things about the questions that come up here as well is that they are asked in a university style of question. They go beyond your curriculum at school, and you do not want to show your understanding of mathematics or your passion for it is limited to just that. We want to be able to see that your understanding and interest in mathematics goes beyond that curriculum, perhaps going into a university level of understanding. So I definitely would recommend having a look at the British Mathematical Olympiad there. And on top of that,
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good thing to mention in your personal statement. I guess I'm kind of contradicting myself by saying, "Oh, yeah, you should include this, this, and this in your personal statement," but they won't read it in the end. And I guess at the end of the day, you're not just writing the personal statement for Oxford and Cambridge. You're applying to most likely 4 other universities, and they probably will read your personal statement. But Oxford and Cambridge probably won't because they have interviews, whereas most other universities do not have interviews. They have their own exclusive admissions test. Other universities don't. So other universities, the only thing they can really judge you by are your grades and what you have to say about yourself, i.e., your personal statement.
there are loads of talks that are going on across the country with public access, usually hosted by universities, that talk about really interesting topics in mathematics that you won't necessarily need to be a uni student in order to understand or engage in. And of course, if there are summer schools available, I definitely would recommend going to one just to get the experience to say that you've worked with an international community of like-minded peers. You, again, had another experience to develop your interests more cohesively within a student body. And you also are excited about the prospect of going to university to study a subject at university level.
I think both of those things are very important. So books is the thing that normally most people talk about in terms of what you should put in your personal statement, but lectures is a really good thing. If you are based in the UK, there are loads of universities, as he mentioned. Oxford do some. So if you literally Google Oxford University public maths lectures, you'll find a website or a web page with a bunch of the upcoming ones. They generally have quite a few every year, and they're totally free. You do have to get a ticket, and I'm sure other universities have similar ones. I'm not sure Cambridge might. Certainly in London, they have loads, and I'm sure they're scattered about in various different universities. It's literally just a matter of doing a quick Google search. There's no excuses there. Also, if you're not based in the UK or you're not based in a place where, or not very accessible for you to get to these places, w- there's nothing stopping you using the internet. There are so many lectures recorded, like the Oxford University Maths Department has lectures recorded. Okay, some of them are at an undergraduate level, so it might be a little bit too advanced, but definitely have a look at some of them. Some of them you might be able to understand. Also, there's just maths videos. I mean, I'm going to promote my own YouTube channel here. I have a ton of maths videos. Maybe if this is your first time, like and subscribe. But there are so many out there as well. I remember in my personal statement, I mentioned watching Black Pen, Red Pen, and Number File, and maybe someone else I can't quite remember. And I remember in my personal statement, I mentioned one of the videos that I watch, and there's nothing wrong with that as well. It's free. It's really easy to do. If you want to watch a YouTube video, it takes 10 minutes, whatever. Just log onto your phone. So there are so many online resources as well. You don't have to physically go to these universities. And with summer courses as well, again, you'll have some which are online, but a lot of them are in person. And if you can go to the in-person ones, obviously they're really fun. You get, a week away or whatever, a weekend away somewhere, which is nice. I did one in Warwick when I was in year 12. I know Oxford University do quite a few. And also, if you're worried about sort of price, there are also some which are more accessible. So if you go to like a state comprehensive school in the UK, I believe it's called Lumin or Lumi, something like that, Lumi or Lumin. I'll see if I can find a link for it, and I'll put that in the description below. I believe that's free for state school students. And if you want, there are lots of other summit camps as well where maybe you do pay a price, or maybe it's done by an external organization which has some sort of affiliate with Oxford University or other universities. But yeah, there are so many things available for you, even just open days, going to those, which is kind of a similar vibe.
On to number 4 now with our top tips. And my next one is make sure you have a robust and solid career plan. And I can even extend this and say that actually
I'm interested to hear what he has to say here, because I definitely have some opinions on this, at least certainly per- perhaps opposing
you
opinions to
want to
this
be
guy.
imagining that you're going to Oxford to study mathematics tomorrow and you know exactly what modules you're going to be doing and actually how you're going to be interacting with the course. Is really, really good to plan this early on, this far ahead, because that furthers your motivation for going onto this course. Again, they're not going to be giving a place to just anybody, and they certainly won't be giving a place to someone who hasn't really thought out how it's going to be useful to them. Now, as
I mean, maybe I've misinterpreted this, but don't get me wrong, it is good to, look at the course. So go on the Oxford University website, the maths department's website, look at the course, look at perhaps if you can find the lecture notes, look at those, or find similar material, look at some of the problem sheets that they have available. But I don't think you really need to plan out which modules you're going to do, throughout the 3/4 years that you're there. Because if you ask me, and I was in sixth form, so 18 years old, 17, 18 years old, applying to Oxford, and you asked me to look at the list of modules, even the first year ones, I wouldn't really know what they are. Linear algebra, I don't know what that means. Analysis, I don't really know what that means. And then if you look at some of the modules after that, it's like in second year, you can learn quantum theory. Even now, after having done the module, I still can't really explain what it is, but it's something. I did it. You also have modules that you do in other years, like algebraic topology. What on earth is that? How do you explain something like that to someone who is 18 if they don't have all the prerequisites? So I don't think it's important to really know exactly, I'm going to do this module in this year, this module in this year, and I want to come out of fourth year and go, I've done XYZ modules, and now I have the skills to become an analytic number theorist or whatever. I don't think that's necessary at all. Don't get me wrong, as I say, it's useful to look at the notes. Most universities, or certainly Oxford and Cambridge, have similar courses, not exactly the same. And also with Oxford University, every few years they change the course. Certainly by third and fourth year, some of the modules available when I did the course, which was a few years ago, I graduated in 2022. Some of the modules they have now are slightly different. So they've introduced some, got rid of some, and that's just kind of a mixture of popularity of the course between students, but also availabilities of the professors. Because obviously, the more and more higher level you go, the more specialized those topics become, and the fewer the number of tutors you have that can, or professors that can explain those topics, lecture those topics, deliver lessons on those topics. So you need to ensure that there's a nice balance there. So I'd say definitely have a look, and if you're curious, look at the lecture notes, but don't be intimidated if you don't understand anything. If you look at algebraic topology, you probably won't even understand the notation. I remember when I was in year 13, I decided, you know what, I'm going to look at the proof of Fermat's last theorem, thinking, I've done proof by induction in school. I should be able to wrap my head around it. And of course I can. I mean, just scrolling through, I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this? There's not even any mention of x to the n plus y to the n is z to the n. You've got all this weird stuff about algebra, but even in high school, when I think of algebra, I'm thinking about rearranging an equation. That's not the same as linear algebra or abstract algebra or anything like that. Okay, I disagree with him on that.
as a recommendation at the profs, we recommend 5 years after graduation. So that not only do you cover the transition period of getting into work, maybe starting off at a company if that's what you want to do, but also you get into your specialisms and perhaps you cover your dream goal if you have one. The goal that you aspire to achieve, the profession that you want to be able to reach way in the future. Although saying that, most people that actually study mathematics at Oxford, they mainly want to go and do research, so that's not a bad thing to be able to put down. I remember as part of my university application, I wanted to say that eventually I wanted to become a lecturer within mathematics. So put down your passions, make sure they are strong, and make sure that whatever you say you want to do, it heavily relates to the content and the opportunities available that is at the University of Oxford.
Uh, Maybe that's me being a bit harsh, but I think that's a load of BS. Um, maybe it's coming from the point of view of someone who, when I was that stage, when I was 18, I had no idea what I wanted to do after university. I basically applied to do maths at university because I really enjoyed maths. I really found it interesting. I was good at it. I enjoyed solving these kind of more abstract problems, and I had a good intuition for it. When I was watching these maths videos online, I'd go, "Okay, that's actually really interesting, really cool. How can I use that in this other scenario?" And I imagine lots of you are in a similar position where you really enjoy maths because it's just this almost like an art form and you're learning more and more and everything is like tickles your curiosity sort of, and that kind of drives you to want to learn more. And for me at least, I'd never had that experience with learning before. I'd always been good at school, had decent grades, but never really, that was because I buried my head in a textbook. I got an A star in GCSE RS, couldn't tell you a thing about it now because there was no underlying passion or drive. It's just because I put my head in the textbook 2 weeks before the exam, sort of thing. But with maths, it was something different. I really enjoyed it. So, and I imagine there's a lot of you like that. So, yeah, I'd say you don't have to have your career plan. Maybe if you are blessed enough to know exactly what you want to do, that's great. If you want to, I don't know, become a math lecturer, that's great. But I think maybe you don't have enough experience yet as someone who is 18. You've only done school level maths. And as anyone who's done university maths can tell you, it's very different to school level maths. And that's not to deter you, of course. That's to hopefully do the opposite and encourage you to want to study it. But I think at this stage, there should be no pressure to know exactly what you want to do. If you're going to university, and I'd say this to anyone, not just mathematicians, if you want to go to university to study a subject, don't go for the sake of going, or don't go because you want to do a job which is high paying, and you think maths is going to be the route there. uh, don't make me wrong, a lot of high paying jobs require a maths degree or a similar degree, but that should not be ever be the motivation to go and study at university. It should be because you really enjoy a subject or are really passionate. It shouldn't just be, oh, my mates are doing it, so why not? Or and also, if that's your attitude, you probably can't get into Oxbridge, politely. But also, if you are just applying because your mates are applying, or you're not really sure what to do, take a gap year. I'd say don't go to university just for shits and giggles. Go because you really want to, study maths or study whatever it is you wanted to study. If you know what your career is, sorry, I'm waffling on a bit. If you know what your career is, great. Maybe mention it if it is closely related to maths, especially if you do want to, go into research or not. But if you are 18, 17, 18, and you have no idea what you want to do, but you know that you're really good at maths and you know that you enjoy maths, stick with it, study the degree, apply for these top universities because you'll enjoy it. Especially if you're watching my videos, and other videos on YouTube about maths, you clearly have some sort of interest. No one's forcing you to do that. So you'd enjoy the degree, but I don't think there should be any pressure to know what you want to do after that. Even like by the time I was in fourth year, I had no idea what I wanted to do after my degree. In fact, I was applying to things that most the stereotypical mathematician jobs. So going into central London, working for banks or trading companies, things like that. And I was like, I don't really know if I wanted to do that or not. But so yeah, there's no pressure whatsoever to know exactly what you want to do. Certainly now, or even in a few years' time.
Now, you may be thinking, how do I do that if I'm writing a UCAS application for multiple subjects at once? And what I generally recommend is you write your application with your top choice in mind. Other universities will understand that you cannot write an application perfectly for a maximum of 5 universities at once. So aim to write for Oxford without necessarily mentioning any particular courses. But again, remember to spend at least 80% of the time talking about your academic interests, your reading, and your.
I'd say it should be like 98% of your personal statement is your academic interest. They they could not give a shit about what you do outside of maths. Like, I don't know a blunt way to put that, but sorry, that is a very blunt way of putting it. But they could not give a shit if you play for Chelsea Football Club, if you have, you've won MasterChef, or whatever. They don't give a shit. Politely, they don't give a shit. They have Olympians at Oxford University, Cambridge University. They have amazing actors. Emma Watson is currently studying at Oxford. I think she may have just graduated. They have so many people um, who have done really amazing things. They don't give a shit. They care about whether you're good at maths or not.
Engagement within the subject. And my final top tip to finish off, which I think is very, very apt, is to actually get a mathematics tutor on board to help you. There are some schools that do not offer these kinds of services simply because of funding issues, or they don't have staff available in order to be able to help with this. And one-to-one tuition, one-to-one sort of advice on the overall application process definitely helps with that, especially getting ready for that MAT, which is such a different kind of exam to A-level exams that are taken. At the Profs, we offer a multitude of different services.
No free promo, Chris. What do I think about getting a tutor? So this is, I guess, an interesting question for me to answer. I never had a maths tutor for my, preparations for Oxbridge. It was all just working myself with the great help of my teachers as well at school. So just a bit back, when I went to a state comprehensive school, I was the first person in my school to even apply to Oxford, let alone get an offer and get a place at Oxford. I was the first person to apply. So I liked, and I've never played the card of, oh, I came from a disadvantaged background, I had it really difficult. No, that I think today, compared to 25 years ago, that there's no excuse for oh, I went to a shit school, I went to, you have so many resources. Jamin here in editing mode. I have no idea what happened to my audio. It just decided to cut off. So I will kind of end the video there. I mean, it's basically done. The guy just talks about getting tutoring from their company. Basically, in terms of getting a tutor, what are my thoughts? Tutoring is great, and I see it every day when I tutor students, how much more quickly they grow, how they go from wherever they are to the next steps much, very, very quickly, sort of thing. As I said, I've never had a tutor myself. In when I was preparing for Oxford and all that sort of stuff, I never had a tutor. I had my own drive and passion, and so I guess with that, it's not necessary to have a tutor. In fact, many students get in without ever having tutoring, but lots of students do get in with tutoring. I think tutoring is very useful. I think, firstly, you have to have a good tutor. There's no point getting a tutor if they're dog shit. That's the truth. And if you do get a tutor, what is important to ensure is that they are kind of not necessarily teaching you maths. I mean, of course, they will be teaching you things. They should know the ins and outs of maths, know it like the back of their hand, especially things like the maths admissions test step, TMUA, that sort of stuff. But it's more, you're here now and you want to get to here, which is Oxford or Cambridge or whatever, an offer from them. And getting from here to here, as a student, as a 16, 17, 18-year-old, it's not clear how you get from here to here. And you might end up starting to walk in the wrong direction. And so a job of a good tutor is to more usher you in the right direction. So maybe if you have a lesson, I don't know, once a week, let's say, during that week you're doing lots and lots and lots of independent work. You're really trying to explore, using this analogy, you're here, you really want to explore the local area and try and work out what's the best direction to getting a step forward towards Oxford or Cambridge. And then that tutor is there as someone to kind of bounce ideas off of, to answer any questions if you've been struggling with certain maths problems or areas, also to give you advice and just general push you in the right direction. So a tutor is really, really good. It's just a good person to almost fall back on. But, lots of students have tutoring and don't get into Oxford or Cambridge. It's not something you can rely on. Whether you have a tutor or not, the majority of the work comes from you as a student. The tutor is just there as an extra resource, an extra thing to use to help you to get to that goal. So tutoring, definitely not necessary. And I know that's a bit weird. You might think surely me as a maths tutor with their own tutoring business would be promoting tutoring. But the short answer is no, it's not necessary, but it does help. If you have a good tutor. There's no point getting a shit tutor. It's just a waste of money, waste of time, waste of everything. Make sure you have a good tutor if you do get one. And if you do get tutoring, do not solely rely on it. It's not something you can just fall back on and go to lessons once a week. And if you really do enjoy maths, you shouldn't be doing that anyway. You'd be naturally curious to be learning about maths in your own time anyway. Cool. I'm going to end the video there. In terms of this video that I've been reacting to, I think it's a decent video. it's certainly if you're completely clueless about applying to Oxford or Cambridge, it does give you at least a good starting point, a good foundation. But I disagree with a few of the points, as I made clear in my reaction. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. If you have any videos you want me to react to, let me know in the comments. Or if you want to see any other kind of maths form videos or Oxbridge style stuff, let me know. Apart from that, have a great rest of your day. I'll catch you in the next one.